Hello everyone, Happy New Year, and we're back! First and foremost, this video focuses on the mechanics of the series, not the story. That's not our focus for the video. Instead, let's imagine the feel of a sequel for Sly Cooper, Sly 5 in this case, running on the PlayStation 5. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty details, let's first discuss what playing Sly Cooper is even all about. Sly Cooper is classified as a 3D stealth platformer game. This series began with the Thieves Raccoonus. We control Sly Cooper. He's sneaky, walks on high buildings, climbs up poles, swings his cane around, and as the series progressed, we moved on to hub worlds with extra playable characters, each of these characters having their set of missions surrounding their abilities. These characters happen to be Sly's childhood friends. Bentley, who would talk to us over the Binocucom in the first game, he still does. It's still a core factor of the series. Then we have Murray. Already, Sly 2 Band of Thieves introduced us to a variety of gameplay. According to Sly 2, Bentley is the brains, Murray is the brawn, and of course Sly, the master thief, or what I like to call the stamina of the gang. Thief in this case is too vague if we're speaking of mechanics primarily, because technically, Bentley, who's the brains, can also pickpocket. Starting with Sly 3 that is, Bentley in a wheelchair. Sly pickpocketing has been a default since Sly 2 Band of Thieves. Looking at Murray, he can also pickpocket, starting with Sly 3 like Bentley. Then we have Carmelita, the one who fights for justice on the side of the law, who also happened to fall in love with Sly Cooper. It's a complicated situation between these two. Now the thing about Sly 3, we actually have even more extra playable characters for segments in particular. But just to get our idea across in this video, we'll focus on our main gang, Sly, Bentley, Murray, and Carmelita. So back to what I was saying. We could control Carmelita in a few segments, shooting down guards, shooting down a criminal. As for Thieves in Time, Carmelita was also playable. What I'm getting at here is gameplay. We have pickpocketing, stealth, hacking, punching, shooting. Already, just picture how these mechanics would be tied to the PlayStation 5's DualSense Controller. The PlayStation 5's unique features are mainly tied to the DualSense Controller. By unique, we refer to the actual controller's new capabilities. We have two new features, well technically one of them is more like an updated version of what we had before. An updated feature would be the rumble controls, aka the DualSense's haptic feedback. According to official wording from Sony, feel physically responsive feedback to your in-game actions with dual actuators, which replace traditional rumble motors. In your hands, these dynamic vibrations can simulate the feeling of everything from environments to the recoil of different weapons. Simulate the feeling of everything. You probably already have certain ideas when it comes to Sly Cooper. Everything in this case would be anything from pulsating weapons, or weapons in general. Environment, be it sand, snow. In other words, feel the impact of your surroundings within the game you're playing. The second feature of the DualSense would be the adaptive triggers. Experience varying levels of force and tension as you interact with your in-game gear and environments, from pulling back an increasingly tight bowstring to hitting the brakes on a speeding car. Feel physically connected to your on-screen actions. Another example of the use of adaptive triggers would be Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, where pulling the trigger halfway shoots one barrel of your weapon. Pulling the trigger all the way shoots two barrels. This is all depending of your weapon, of course. For example, the burst pistol. Pulling the trigger all the way shoots your weapon repeatedly. Holding it halfway down, you can shoot a fewer bullets at a time. All in all, adaptive triggers have to do with how you want to utilize your arsenal, while also giving you the feel of what they call dynamic resistance. Now our question is, with the adaptive triggers and haptic feedback in mind, what would playing Sly 5 on the PS5 feel like? This is where our imagination can run wild. Sly Cooper mechanics revolves around the idea of these things right here. Looking at this list of mechanics in Sly Cooper, you can already imagine where haptic feedback can come into play. Looking at our character Sly, primarily, just imagine walking on rooftops. With the PS5 capabilities, we could imagine Sly walking on old, broken rooftops. As we walk on said rooftops, tiles fall to the ground. All these little slight vibrations on the tiles on the roofs you could feel them in the palm of your hands. What's even cooler, or perhaps scarier, all these roof tiles falling to the ground would easily alert guards. This is where you gotta be proactive. Keep an eye on what surface you're walking on. Imagine walking on sand, especially looking at ancient Egypt, that, cliffhanger in Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. Imagine a playable episode in Egypt. Let me just say this, a while back there was an interview with Kinda Funny Games. Sanzaro Games confirmed that there was a DLC for Ancient Egypt. It was unfortunately cut. If you're ever curious about this interview, I'll leave a link in the description below. So yes, about the whole thing walking on sand. Depending on its depth, running on sand, for example, might alert guards as well. Walking through a forest, leaves, you could feel everything. All that impact, you can feel it in the palm of your hands. In Sly 2 and Sly 4 in this case Thieves in Time, breaking clue bottles, for example, would alert nearby guards. Heck, I'd imagine feeling clue bottles being nearby. Just those subtle, slight vibrations, feeling them in your controller. Especially on old, broken, loose rooftop tiles. As for adaptive triggers, Sly's cane. Assuming Sly 5 would give Sly a bunch of new abilities with his cane, pulling on the trigger, for example, all the way, would make Sly swing his cane around in some sort of fashion. Carmelita, assuming she would have an even more significant role in the next game, I mean she is wondering about Sly's whereabouts after all, her using her pistol, for example. Just like in Rift Apart, pulling all the way would either shoot consecutively, or pulling halfway would make you shoot more strategically, like a single barrel of her pistol. This could vary depending on which pistol Carmelita uses. That's right, I would like to imagine that she'd have a variety of weapons to choose from. Murray, the brawn of the team, you could feel the impact of his punches on enemies. Bentley, rolling around on his wheelchair, I mean, depending on the surface you're on, you're gonna feel that sensation in your hands. He started off with a crossbow in Sly 2. 3 and 4, his wheelchair took on the role of melee and range attacks. Bentley's power-ups, looking at his bombs specifically, we have the trigger bomb. Going off Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, after throwing these bombs, pressing on the trigger R2 would detonate these bombs. Applying adaptive triggers to this scenario, pulling all the way would deal more damage or cause more of an impact. More impact would mean higher chances of alerting the guards, unfortunately. At least by Thieves in Time standards. As for pressing the trigger halfway, you could deal enough damage to get rid of the guard without alerting others. At the end of the day, this is all just imagination. With that said, how would you imagine the DualSense's features being utilized? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and as always, I've been Vivi, and again, Happy New Year. Thank you for watching, and until next time.